What if the answers to Earth's next great upheaval aren't locked in high-tech satellites or supercomputers, but hidden inside ancient stones, waiting to be decoded? Picture this, a rock weathered by time, its surface carved with strange symbols by hands that lived thousands of years ago. These aren't just random scratches. They could be a map, a blueprint left behind by a forgotten civilization, whispering secrets about the planet's future. Think about the sheer weight of that possibility. These artifacts, older than pyramids, older than written history itself, might hold clues to shifts in the Earth's crust, climate patterns, even catastrophic events yet to come. And the most chilling part, modern science is only just beginning to catch up. For centuries, these carvings were dismissed as primitive art or ritual markings. But what if there's something far more profound? Imagine a group of people long gone who somehow understood the Earth's rhythms so deeply they could predict its movements and left warnings or guidance etched in stone. From the labyrinth-like patterns in caves to the precise alignments of megalithic monuments, there's a growing suspicion that our ancestors knew things we're only now rediscovering. Geologists, historians, and even climate scientists are starting to take these ancient maps seriously, piecing together a puzzle that spans millennia. So how did they do it? How could civilizations without satellites or seismographs possibly track planetary shifts? And more importantly, what can these stones tell us about the changes looming on our own horizon? That's the mystery we're diving into today. We'll travel from remote archaeological sites where these rocks were first uncovered, to cutting-edge labs where researchers are using lasers and AI to decode their secrets. Along the way, you'll meet the daring scientists risking their reputations to prove these carvings aren't just ancient history. They might be a survival guide for the future. Because if these stones really can predict Earth's next shift, understanding them isn't just about curiosity, it's about preparation. So stay with me, because what you're about to see could change how you think about the ground beneath your feet. The creators of these ancient rock maps remain as enigmatic as the carvings themselves. Scattered across the globe, from the windswept cliffs of the American Southwest to the shadowy chambers of European megalithic tombs, these markings share an eerie similarity, as if separated cultures were all trying to convey the same urgent message. Take the ancestral pueblones, for instance. Their spirals and zigzag patterns, long thought to be mere ceremonial art, align with seismic fault lines and underground water sources with uncanny precision. Then there's the sprawling network of cup and ring marks in Scotland's Kilmartin Glen, where circular depressions mirror celestial events like solstices and lunar cycles. How could cultures with no known contact produce such strikingly consistent designs? One compelling theory points to a lost epoch of human history, a time when early civilizations possessed sophisticated knowledge of geology and astronomy, passed down through generations before being reduced to symbols. Indigenous oral traditions often speak of sky ancestors or earth teachers who instructed people on how to read the land's hidden rhythms. The Dogon people of Mali, for example, preserved detailed astronomical knowledge of Sirius B, a star invisible to the naked eye, for centuries before modern telescopes confirmed its existence. Could similar wisdom be encoded in these stones? Yet not all researchers believe these maps were purely scientific. Some argue they served as spiritual roadmaps, guiding rituals or marking sacred sites where the Earth's energy was believed to converge. In Turkey's Göbekli Tepe, pillars carved with animal symbols align with constellations, but also sit atop subterranean water channels, blending the practical with the mystical. This duality raises a haunting question. Did ancient peoples see no distinction between the physical and the divine when it came to the Earth's movements? The locations where these maps are found only deepen the mystery. Many lie in zones prone to earthquakes, volcanic activity, or drastic climate shifts. On Malta's hypogeum, a subterranean temple complex, red ochre swirls mimic the patterns of seismic waves, a coincidence or a deliberate warning. Even more startling are the underwater carvings off Japan's Yonaguni, where stepped pyramids and glyphs rest beneath the ocean, suggesting their makers anticipated rising seas. What unites these scattered clues is a sense of urgency. Whether created as scientific records, spiritual guides, or both, the maps share a common thread. They document a world in flux. And that's what makes them so relevant today. As modern scientists grapple with climate change and tectonic instability, these ancient stones stand as silent witnesses to Earth's unending transformation, and perhaps as guides to navigating the next great shift. Those spirals, grids, and intersecting lines carved into ancient stones aren't just decorative, they're a sophisticated language waiting to be translated. Picture a spiral winding inward like a coiled spring. To modern researchers, this could represent anything from the path of migrating animals to the swirling motion of ocean currents, or even the magnetic fields that crisscross our planet. Then there are the grids, precise as a surveyor's map, aligning with underground water veins or mineral deposits, and those jagged intersecting lines. They mirror the very fault lines where tectonic plates grind against one another, suggesting these carvers didn't just observe the land, they understood its hidden fractures. One of the most striking examples comes from New Mexico's Chaco Canyon, where petroglyphs of concentric circles and radiating lines match the region's seismic activity with unsettling accuracy. Researchers using ground-penetrating radar discovered that many of these symbols cluster above ancient landslide zones or underground springs. It's as if the artists were leaving breadcrumbs for future generations, markers saying, "Here, the Earth moves. Here, the water hides." Similar patterns appear on the other side of the world, like the labyrinthine carvings in Sardinia's Neuragic wells, where spirals descend into the earth alongside subterranean aquifers. But the real breakthrough came when scientists noticed how certain symbols align with celestial events. In Ireland's Noath Passage tomb, a stone etched with wavy lines precisely marks the spot where moonlight falls during the winter solstice, illuminating the carving like a spotlight. Meanwhile, in the American Southwest, researchers found that certain zigzag patterns correspond with solar eclipses recorded in tree rings from the same era. This suggests these symbols weren't just maps, they were calendars, tracking cosmic rhythms that influence Earth's behavior. Yet the most haunting theory comes from linguists studying the symbols' repetition across continents. In both the Andes and the Australian outback, identical diamond-shaped motifs appear near regions prone to volcanic eruptions. Could this be a universal warning sign, a kind of prehistoric hazard symbol? Some cryptographers argue these patterns form a proto-writing system, blending practical observation with myth. The Aboriginal peoples' song lines, for instance, describe geological features through stories, turning landmarks into living maps passed down through generations. Modern technology is finally giving us the tools to crack this code. Using spectral imaging, researchers at Cambridge recently uncovered previously invisible layers of pigment on Scottish standing stones, revealing hidden connections between symbols. Artificial intelligence is now analyzing thousands of carvings worldwide, searching for grammatical structures in what was once dismissed as random art. Early results suggest these symbols might operate like a puzzle, where individual marks gain meaning only when combined, much like how modern infographics convey complex data through simple shapes. What's emerging is a radical idea. These stones may be the world's first interdisciplinary textbooks, merging astronomy, geology, and hydrology into a single visual language. And if that's true, decoding them could unlock more than just ancient knowledge. It might reveal patterns in Earth's behavior that our instruments are too young to recognize. After all, these carvers had something modern science lacks: millennia of uninterrupted observation. They witnessed shifts we've only read about in ice cores and sediment layers. So the question isn't just what these symbols mean, it's whether we're finally ready to listen. The stones themselves hold more than just carvings, they're layered archives of Earth's turbulent history. Imagine cracking open one of these rocks and finding not just symbols, but a timeline written in minerals, each layer a page in a planetary diary. Take the basalt columns of the Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland, for instance. Their hexagonal shapes formed from cooling lava millions of years ago, but trapped within them are microscopic bubbles of ancient atmosphere, snapshots of the air our ancestors breathed. Or consider the banded iron formations in Western Australia, where rust-red stripes alternate with grey like a barcode. These stripes weren't just artistic accidents, they're evidence of Earth's great oxygenation event 2.4 billion years ago, when the planet's chemistry shifted forever. What's truly astonishing is how these natural records align with the carvings on their surfaces. In Turkey's Cappadocia region, volcanic tuff stones bear both human-made symbols and magnetic anomalies that correspond with historical eruptions. Researchers using electron microscopy discovered that iron particles within the rock realigned during past seismic events, meaning the stone literally felt earthquakes and preserved their direction like a compass needle frozen in time. Similarly, in the caves of France's Chauvet-Pont d'Arc, calcite deposits over 30,000 years old show growth patterns interrupted by abrupt climate shifts, mirroring the zigzag symbols early artists painted nearby. Were these markings celebratory, warnings, or something else entirely? The tools of modern geology are now revealing connections we once missed. X-ray fluorescence scanners can detect trace elements like strontium or barium, which spike during volcanic activity, hidden within seemingly ordinary stones. In Peru's Nazca Desert, where ancient geoglyphs sprawl across the landscape, scientists found that rocks with spiral carvings contain higher concentrations of iridium, a metal linked to asteroid impacts. Could these spirals be recording celestial disasters? Even more compelling are the magnetic fingerprints in Scandinavian runestones, where lodestone inclusions appear to mark locations where Earth's magnetic field fluctuated dramatically during the Viking Age. Perhaps the most urgent clue lies in what these rocks don't show. Sediment cores from stones near the Mediterranean reveal a layer of ash from the Thera eruption 3,600 years ago, followed by a gap in human carvings for generations. Silence etched in stone, it's a pattern repeated worldwide, periods of frantic carving before collapses, then stillness, as if the rocks themselves were saying, "Pay attention, this is how it happens." Now, with spectrometers and particle accelerators, we're learning to read between the layers, because if these stones truly are chronicles of past upheavals, their most vital message might be about what comes next. The idea that ancient humans possessed knowledge rivaling our own isn't just speculation, it's etched in stone. Across the globe, these carvings defy the timeline we've been taught, showing landmasses like Doggerland, a vast plain now submerged beneath the North Sea, or star patterns that only matched the sky 12,000 years ago. How could cultures working with stone tools chart coastlines swallowed by rising seas or track celestial movements with such precision? This isn't just archaeology, it's a challenge to history itself. Take the Piri Reis map, a 16th century artifact drawn from even older sources, depicting Antarctica's coastline without ice. Modern sonar confirms its accuracy, yet mainstream science claims Antarctica's terrain was last visible over 6 million years ago. Then there's the Babylonian mole, a pin tablets cataloging stars with positions that align not with their era, but with the night sky 9,000 years prior. These aren't mistakes, they're deliberate records of a world much older than we've acknowledged. Legends of lost civilizations like Atlantis or Hyperborea suddenly seem less like myth and more like fragmented history. Plato described Atlantis as a society that measured the earth, while Sanskrit texts speak of the Roma Empire, whose flying machines mapped the planet from above. Even more compelling are the oral traditions of the Hopi, who describe a series of world-ending cataclysms, each preceded by the same geological signs we're now observing. Could these stories be the last echoes of a civilization that mastered Earth's rhythms, only to vanish beneath them? The carvings add fuel to the fire. On Malta's Tarxian temples, spirals mirror ocean currents that shifted during the Younger Dryas period, a time of abrupt climate change. In India's Bhimbetka rock shelters, red ochre paintings depict a horizon with two suns, a possible record of a nearby supernova. These details suggest a terrifying possibility that advanced knowledge wasn't lost gradually, but in sudden collapses, leaving only fragments behind. What's most unsettling isn't just the accuracy of these maps, it's their urgency. Symbols repeat like alarms, concentric circles near fault lines, wavy lines where tsunamis struck, jagged marks where volcanoes erupted. Were these warnings meant for us? As ice cores and sediment layers confirm ancient periods of upheaval, the stones seem to whisper, "This has happened before." The real question isn't whether these civilizations were ahead of their time, it's whether we're too late to learn from them. Modern technology is finally giving us the keys to unlock these ancient warnings. Satellite imaging has revealed something startling. Many of these carvings don't just resemble geological features, they match them with eerie precision. In the American Southwest, researchers at the University of Colorado overlapped petroglyph sites with seismic data and found that 70% of the spiral symbols cluster within 1 mile of active fault lines. Meanwhile, in Iceland, a team from Reykjavik University discovered that Viking-era runestones marked with jagged lines align perfectly with underground magma chambers still active today. It's as if these carvers had X-ray vision, seeing straight through the earth to its restless bones. But the real game changer has been artificial intelligence. A project at Stanford trained machine learning algorithms to analyze thousands of rock carvings worldwide, searching for hidden patterns. The AI flagged recurring symbols near coastal regions, wavy lines, stacked arches, that correspond to areas now threatened by rising sea levels. Even more chilling, some of these carvings appear inland, in places that would have been coastlines during the last ice age. That's not guesswork, it's memory preserved in stone. Climate scientists are joining the hunt too. In Australia, researchers compared Aboriginal rock art depicting drought symbols with tree ring records and found they marked periods of megadroughts that recur every few centuries. The same symbols are now reappearing in contemporary Indigenous warnings about shifting weather patterns. This isn't just archaeology, it's a live feed from the past, hinting at cycles we're only beginning to recognize. Yet the most provocative research comes from astrophysics. At Chichen Itza, Mayan carvings of celestial serpents align with solar eclipses, but also with periods of heightened cosmic radiation, events linked to solar storms that could cripple modern power grids. NASA are now funding studies to cross-reference these carvings with satellite data on solar activity, testing whether ancient observers might have tracked threats our telescopes can't predict. What's emerging is a radical collaboration across disciplines. Geologists peer into stones for earthquake clues, climatologists decode drought warnings, and astrophysicists trace cosmic patterns, all guided by marks made millennia ago. The big question isn't just whether these maps worked in the past, but whether we're smart enough to use them now. Because if a spiral on a rock can point to an underground fault, or a zigzag can signal a coming storm, then these carvers weren't just artists. They were scientists speaking across time, and their greatest lesson might be this: the Earth's shifts aren't random, they're rhythms, and the stones remember. The Nazca Lines stretch across Peru's desert like a giant sketchbook, enigmatic figures of spiders, monkeys, and geometric shapes, so vast they're only visible from the air. For decades, theories about their purpose ranged from alien landing strips to celestial calendars. But a groundbreaking discovery has rewritten the narrative. These lines might be the world's most ambitious water map. Satellite imaging combined with ground-penetrating radar revealed something astonishing. Many of the straight, razor-thin lines converge directly above underground aquifers, while the larger animal figures often sit atop ancient fault lines where water rises to the surface. To a civilization living in one of the driest places on Earth, this wasn't art, it was survival. The precision defies belief. Researchers from the University of Massachusetts found that the famous hummingbird glyph's beak points to a seasonal spring, while zigzag patterns near the Nazca River's dry bed mark where water once pooled during rare rains. Even more striking, some lines align with Puquio's spiral-shaped underground canals built by the Nazca to tap into these hidden reserves. It's as if the geoglyphs were part of a vast, interconnected manual, surface symbols guiding people to life-saving water beneath their feet. But the real genius lies in how these maps may have predicted droughts. Studies of sediment layers show the Nazca endured catastrophic dry periods, yet their society thrived for centuries. How climatologists now suspect the lines doubled as a hydrological calendar. Certain trapezoid shapes mirror the angle of the sun during solstices, casting shadows that lengthened or shortened with the seasons. When shadows reached specific points on the desert floor, it signaled the optimal time to dig new Puquios or ration water. This wasn't just wayfinding, it was foresight carved into the earth itself. The implications ripple far beyond Peru. In Jordan's Black Desert, wheel-shaped stone structures eerily similar to Nazca Lines cluster around long-vanished oases. In California's Mojave, ancient petroglyphs of interconnected circles match the paths of underground rivers now tapped by modern wells. Could these too be forgotten water maps? The common thread is urgency. These cultures weren't doodling, they were encoding critical knowledge in the only medium durable enough to outlast them: stone and soil. What's unsettling is how modern science is just catching up. NASA GRACE satellites now track groundwater shifts using gravity measurements, a high-tech echo of the Nazca's desert etchings. Meanwhile, archaeologists are re-examining other ceremonial carvings with fresh eyes. Those winding lines on Scottish standing stones, they might trace mineral veins. Australian Aboriginal dot paintings, possibly markers for seasonal waterholes. The lesson is clear: when survival hangs in the balance, humans don't waste time on decoration. They leave instructions, and if we're smart, we'll start reading them. The carvings on these ancient stones don't just hint at a shifting landscape. They might be screaming about a planet in flux with poles that refuse to stay put. Deep in the caves of France's Lascaux, among the famous paintings of bison and horses, hides something far more cryptic: a series of red ochre dots and lines that mirror the constellations, but not as we see them today. When researchers superimposed these markings onto star charts, they aligned perfectly with the night sky 17,000 years ago, when Earth's magnetic north hovered over what's now Siberia. It's as if the artists were saying, this is where the world once pointed. Pay attention. This isn't isolated. Inuit oral traditions describe a time when the sun rose in a different part of the sky, while Babylonian cuneiform tablets record stars that no longer match their modern positions. Even more startling are the carved stone discs found in China's Xinjiang region, depicting a compass rose with 8 directions, 2 of which correspond to magnetic north positions from 12,000 and 40,000 years ago. These aren't mistakes, they're frozen memories of a wandering pole. Modern science confirms the unsettling truth. Earth's magnetic field has flipped hundreds of times, with the last major reversal happening 780,000 years ago. Sediment cores from the Black Sea show layers of magnetized minerals abruptly switching direction, while volcanic rocks in Hawaii lock evidence of the magnetic field weakening before each flip. Here's what keeps researchers up at night. Our planet's magnetic field has been weakening 10 times faster over the past century, with the North Pole sprinting toward Siberia at 34 miles per year. Sound familiar? The stones might hold the key to what comes next. In Egypt's Temple of Hathor at Dendera, a zodiac ceiling shows constellations in positions that only made sense during a pole's shift around 10,500 BC. Meanwhile, Native American petroglyphs in the American Southwest depict spirals with off-center cores, a possible representation of Earth's wobbling axis. The most chilling clue comes from Göbekli Tepe's Pillar 43, nicknamed the Vulture Stone. Its carved animals align with stars as they would have appeared during the Younger Dryas period, a time of abrupt climate chaos linked to geomagnetic disturbances. What's terrifying isn't just that the poles move, it's what happens when they do. Ice cores from Greenland reveal that during past reversals, solar radiation spiked, ozone layers thinned, and compasses would have spun uselessly. Migratory animals reliant on magnetic fields would have been thrown into disarray, a scenario eerily echoed in ancient petroglyphs showing herds scattering in chaos. Modern grids and satellites, equally dependent on stable magnetism, face similar risks, yet the stones offer more than doom. Some carvings, like the concentric rings in Ireland's Newgrange, align with magnetic anomalies that intensify during solar storms, suggesting they could have served as early warning systems. Others, like the serpentine patterns in Mesoamerican temples, trace the path of the magnetic equator as it shifts, offering a roadmap for navigation post-flip. The debate among scientists isn't if another reversal is coming, it's when. Satellite data from Europe's Swarm mission shows the magnetic field weakening most over the Americas and Asia, while South Africa develops a bizarre opposite polarity patch. Some models predict a full flip within 2,000 years, others warn it could happen within decades. Either way, the rocks seem to whisper the same urgent message: this isn't the first time. Prepare. Whether these carvings are prophecies, survival guides, or both, one thing's certain: they're the closest thing we have to a manual for planetary turbulence. And in a world where north isn't always north, that might be the most vital knowledge of all. Those jagged lines carved into ancient stones aren't random. They're shockingly precise records of the Earth's violent movements. In California's Owens Valley, Paiute elders still point to petroglyphs of zigzagging patterns, warning that where the stone's lines fracture sharply, the ground will one day follow. Recent LiDAR scans reveal these carvings cluster along the very fault lines that produced the state's deadliest quakes, from San Francisco in 1906 to Ridgecrest in 2019. Even more unsettling, some symbols appear in areas seismologists now classify as silent faults, zones overdue for rupture but ignored because they haven't shaken in recorded history. The stone's predictive power might lie in their creators' understanding of harmonic tremors, subtle vibrations that precede major quakes. In Japan, Ainu folklore describes talking stones that emit faint hums before earthquakes, a phenomenon modern science confirms. Certain rocks under stress generate low-frequency sound waves days before seismic events. Similar legends persist among the Maori, whose Paunamu greenstone carvings near fault lines are said to grow warm to the touch before tremors. Laboratory experiments at Tokyo University found that basalt, the same material used in many earthquake-marking petroglyphs, conducts piezoelectric currents when compressed, potentially explaining these singing stone traditions. Now, geologists are racing to decode these patterns before the next big one hits. A team from Stanford recently superimposed ancient Greek and Mesopotamian earthquake symbols onto satellite fault maps and found an 80% match with modern high-risk zones. Even more compelling are the recurring symbols near subduction zones. Spirals with jagged edges in Chile's Atacama Desert mirror the exact spots where megathrust quakes have struck every 300 years like clockwork. The last one, 1960. What's truly revolutionary is how these maps might fill gaps in modern forecasting. Seismometers detect quakes seconds before impact, but ancient markers could offer warnings years in advance. Take Turkey's Çatalhöyük settlement, where 9,000-year-old wall carvings show collapsing structures beside wavy lines, a possible depiction of liquefaction during quakes. Excavations reveal the city was abandoned for centuries after a major tremor, then rebuilt with earthquake-resistant architecture exactly where the carvings suggested safer ground lay. The stakes couldn't be higher. Nearly 60% of the world's population lives in active seismic zones, many atop forgotten faults. As urban sprawl buries geological clues, these ancient maps may be our last chance to read the Earth's hidden fractures before they split open. The irony is profound. Civilizations without steel or silicon developed a language of disaster resilience we're only now learning to speak. Their message is clear: the Earth always gives warning. The question is whether we'll heed it this time. On the slopes of Hawaii's Kilauea volcano, where molten rock still reshapes the land, a cluster of ancient petroglyphs hides in plain sight. To the untrained eye, they're simple lines and circles, but to geologists, they're something far more extraordinary. A blow-by-blow account of eruptions that happened centuries before modern records began. The most striking carving shows a series of jagged peaks with rivers of dots flowing downward, an almost identical match to lava flows documented in 19th century surveys. Even more uncanny, the symbols align with scars left by eruptions that occurred long before Europeans set foot on the islands. This isn't unique to Hawaii. In Iceland's Eldgjá Canyon, site of the largest volcanic eruption in human history, runestones carved with fire like glyphs mark the exact path of the lava that poured forth in the year 939. Norse sagas describe the event as the sky vomiting flame, but the stones add chilling detail, concentric rings that modern volcanologists recognize as ash dispersion patterns. Similar carvings near Indonesia's Mount Tambora, whose 1815 eruption caused the infamous Year Without a Summer, depict towering plumes with branching tops, a dead ringer for the way volcanic clouds spread in the stratosphere. What's truly astonishing is how these maps function beyond mere record-keeping. The Maori of New Zealand's North Island still consult Tu'a, whose stones near Mount Tarawera, whose spiraling grooves are said to deepen when subterranean pressure builds. In 2018, elders warned of unusual markings months before White Island's fatal eruption. Modern sensors later confirmed magma movement matching the stone's predicted timeline. Meanwhile, in the Pacific Northwest, Salish tribal stories describe fire mountains that awaken when certain petroglyphs glow red at sunset, a phenomenon geologists now attribute to iron oxide deposits reacting to geothermal heat shifts. The implications for predicting future disasters are staggering. Yellowstone's supervolcano, for instance, erupts roughly every 600,000 years, and we're 50,000 years overdue. While satellites monitor surface changes, they can't peer deep into the magma chambers where catastrophe brews. But ancient stones might hold clues. Near Wyoming's Shoshone River, petroglyphs of exploding mountains align with seismic zones where the Earth's crust is thinning. Even more provocative are the web patterns carved near Italy's Campi Flegrei, a supervolcano that could dwarf Vesuvius. These intricate networks mirror modern tomography scans of the magma plume beneath Naples. The terrifying precision of these carvings raises a haunting question. How did cultures without drills or satellites map subterranean fire? Some researchers point to volcanic whispers, low-frequency infrasound produced by restless magma, audible only in complete silence. Others suggest observation of animal behavior. At Indonesia's Kelad volcano, pre-eruption bird migrations are mirrored in ancient Javanese rock art showing winged figures fleeing mountains. Either way, the stones encode a brutal truth. Volcanoes don't erupt without warning. They simmer, groan, and shift, and someone, long ago, learned to read those signs well enough to etch them into eternity. As modern volcanology races to improve early warning systems, these ancient maps offer a humbling lesson. The same tools that let us predict eruptions, seismometers, gas sensors, thermal cameras are fragile. A single electromagnetic pulse from a solar storm could silence them, but the stones, they've weathered millennia, and their message is clear. The Earth speaks to those who know how to listen. The real challenge isn't just decoding these warnings. It's recognizing that our ancestors might have seen further into the planet's fiery heart than we ever imagined. Cutting open one of these ancient stones is like cracking open a time capsule, except instead of old coins or letters, you find unflinching records of the planet's mood swings. Take the limestone caves of China's Hubei province, where stalagmites bear bands as precise as tree rings. Each layer traps isotopes of oxygen and carbon, revealing rainfall patterns from 200,000 years ago. But here's where it gets eerie. Some layers show abrupt chemical shifts, evidence of droughts so severe they reshaped civilizations. Nearby, cave carvings depict herds of animals vanishing from the rock walls at the exact depths where these climate anomalies appear. It's as if the artists were chronicling ecological collapse in real time. Now zoom out to Greenland's ice cores, where trapped air bubbles show carbon dioxide levels from ancient atmospheres. These cores align with petroglyphs in Australia's Arnhem Land, where Aboriginal artists painted now extinct megafauna beside symbols scholars believe represent thin air or breath that burns. Modern tests confirm these paintings coincide with periods when CO2 spiked to levels comparable to today's. Even more haunting are the cave engravings in Spain's El Castillo, where red dots cluster in patterns matching temperature reconstructions from marine sediments. When the dots scatter chaotically, the climate records show turbulence, rising seas, shifting currents. What's revolutionary is how these carvings complement high-tech climate models. In Arizona's petrified forest, log-like fossils preserve growth rings from the Triassic period, showing decades of lush conditions before sudden aridification. Petroglyphs nearby depict towering trees cracking apart, a possible eyewitness account of that very transition. NASA climatologists recently compared these symbols with satellite data on modern forest die-offs and found unsettling parallels. The same sequence of warning signs appears today. But the most urgent messages come from coastal carvings. On Orkney's Neolithic shores, spiral petroglyphs sit precisely at elevations where sea levels crested during past warm periods. In Florida's underwater caves, similar symbols mark freshwater springs that dried up as oceans rose. These aren't just historical footnotes, they're elevation guides. When researchers at the University of Exeter superimposed these markings onto projections for 21st century sea level rise, the ancient high water lines overlapped almost perfectly with flood risk zones for cities like Miami and Mumbai. The frightening consistency suggests these carvers weren't just recording climate shifts, they anticipated their return. Inuit soapstone carvings from the Arctic show fish species that haven't swum those waters for millennia, yet are now reappearing as temperatures climb. In the Andes, Quechua legends speak of mountains that sweat before the great thaw, mirrored by stress fractures in rocks at certain altitudes where glaciers are currently disintegrating. What emerges is a pattern our instruments are too young to recognize. Climate doesn't shift smoothly, it stutters, lurches, and sometimes snaps. The stones remember every time. And right now, they're showing us symbols we'd be fools to ignore. Because if a wavy line on a cave wall once marked the brink of ecological upheaval, and we're seeing that same pattern in today's date, then history isn't just whispering. It's shouting. Hidden within the grooves of these ancient stones lies a celestial language, a code written not in words but in the precise alignment of stars. Picture standing before a 5,000-year-old slab in Ireland's Newgrange Passage tomb as dawn breaks on the winter solstice. For 17 minutes, a narrow beam of sunlight pierces the darkness, illuminating a spiral carving deep inside. A moment of perfect alignment that hasn't changed since the tomb was sealed. This isn't luck, it's math carved in stone. Across the globe, from Egypt's Temple of Karnak to Colorado's Chimney Rock, ancient builders embedded astronomical knowledge into rock with jaw-dropping accuracy. But the real mystery isn't just what these carvings mark, it's why. Some, like the sun dagger petroglyphs in New Mexico's Choco Canyon, functioned as agricultural calendars. A knife of light slices through carved spirals at noon during summer solstice, signaling the optimal time to plant crops. Others seem to track longer cycles. The 3,000-year-old Nebra sky disk, discovered in Germany, overlays gold arcs marking solstices with a cluster of stars, thought to represent the Pleiades, a constellation used across ancient Europe to predict harvests and navigate seas. Then there are the darker interpretations. In Turkey's Karahanj complex, standing stones with drilled holes align with the stars of Orion, but also point to the exact patch of sky where a massive meteorite struck the Black Sea region around 5000 BC. Similarly, Aboriginal rock art in Australia's Northern Territory depicts the fire devil, a being said to descend from the sky during meteor showers. Radiocarbon dating places these paintings within decades of a recorded comet impact in 1420 CE. Were these star maps also disaster warnings? Modern astronomers are now testing a radical theory that some carvings encode cosmic events we've yet to experience. The Lascaux Cave's famous bull painting includes a cluster of dots matching the Pleiades' position during a rare supernova visible 17,000 years ago. Nearby, fainter dots outline a shape resembling the Crab Nebula, a stellar explosion recorded by Chinese astronomers in 1054 CE. Could these be prehistoric predictions of future supernova? The Maya seem to think so. Their Dresden Codex contains star tables projecting planetary movements centuries ahead, while carvings at Capon's Temple of the Sun track Venus cycles with an error margin of just 2 hours per 500 years. Perhaps most chilling are the carvings that appear to anticipate solar storms. In Sweden's Tanum petroglyphs, spirals radiate jagged lines resembling coronal mass ejections, a phenomenon only confirmed by modern telescopes. Yet these carvings cluster near copper deposits that would have conducted intense electromagnetic activity during solar flares. Meanwhile, in Scotland's Callanish stones, alignments with the moon's 18.6-year cycle suggest ancient observers knew about the lunar-induced superstorms that modern power grids now fear. What emerges is a terrifying possibility that these stones aren't just archives of past skies, but telescopes aimed at our future. As astrophysicists model the next potential solar superstorm predicted to hit before 2050, they're consulting Bronze Age carvings that may have already mapped its arrival. The lesson is humbling. Long before Hubble or James Webb, humans found a way to etch the cosmos' secrets into unyielding rock. And if we're willing to look, they might still be guiding us. Beneath our feet lies a hidden world, one that ancient cultures seem to know far better than we do. From the labyrinthine tunnels beneath Malta's hypogeum to the vast subterranean cities of Cappadocia, legends speak of civilizations that retreated underground during times of catastrophe. But what if these weren't just myths? In the highlands of Peru, a set of petroglyphs known as the Stone of the Three Caverns depicts intricate passageways that, when overlaid with modern LiDAR scans, match unexplored cave systems beneath the Andes. The carvings show not just tunnels, but chambers marked with symbols for water sources and air vents, suggesting these maps were less about legend and more about survival. The precision is staggering. In India's Ellora caves, 7th century carvings of underground networks align with recently discovered aquifers, while in France's Dordogne region, Paleolithic paintings of branching lines mirror the region's limestone karst systems, some of which served as refuges during the last ice age. Even more compelling are the Cherokee star maps etched into cave ceilings in Tennessee, where constellations double as markers for subterranean springs. These aren't abstract doodles, they're blueprints for navigating a world turned inhospitable. Modern explorers are now racing to verify these ancient guides. In Turkey's Derinkuyu, a team using ground-penetrating radar followed symbols carved into volcanic rock, spirals indicating descending paths, zigzags marking unstable areas, and uncovered an entire underground city with ventilation shafts still functional after 3,000 years. Meanwhile, in the American Southwest, archaeologists studying ancestral Puebloan petroglyphs stumbled upon a sealed cavern whose entrance was marked by a rock carving of a stepped pyramid. Inside, they found caches of seeds and tools, arranged exactly as depicted in the symbols. The most chilling theory: these maps might have been created for events yet to come. In central Mexico, Aztec codices describe Tlalocan, a subterranean realm where humanity would shelter during the time of the shaking earth. Recent scans beneath Teotihuacan revealed tunnels lined with mercury, a metal said to mirror celestial rivers in Aztec cosmology, leading to chambers aligned with seismic fault lines. Similar stories echo in Hopi prophecies of a future collapse that will drive survivors underground, guided by petroglyphs of the ant people who once led them to safety. What's clear is that these carvers didn't just record the past, they prepared for cycles of disaster we're only beginning to understand. As climate change and resource wars escalate, the stones whisper an urgent question: will we be the first generation to ignore their warnings? Along coastlines where waves crash against weathered stone, a different kind of record hides in plain sight: carvings of towering waves, figures fleeing uphill, and cities swallowed by the sea. These aren't myths etched in rock, they're forensic accounts of disasters that reshaped continents. On Japan's Okinawa Island, stone tablets known as Tsunami Toho bear inscriptions warning villagers not to build below certain elevations. One reads, "High dwellings are the peace and harmony of our descendants. Remember the calamity of the great tsunamis." For generations, locals dismissed them as folklore until the 2011 Tohoku earthquake sent a surge of water inland, stopping precisely at the line marked on the stones. The precision of these coastal carvings chills modern scientists. In Portugal's Cape Espichal, prehistoric petroglyphs show boats capsized by waves with curled, claw-like crests, a style only seen in tsunamis, not ordinary waves. Marine archaeologists later discovered the ruins of a Bronze Age settlement offshore, buried under sediment layers matching the carving's estimated age. Even more striking are the Aboriginal Burrumbur stones of Australia's Arnhem Land, where zigzag lines map out the paths of dreaming tides, cyclical tsunami patterns that modern oceanographers confirm recur every 500 to 700 years. The last one, around 1700 CE, just before European colonists arrived. But it's the submerged cities that truly blur the line between legend and history. Off India's Tamil Nadu coast, local fishermen still navigate using calirangal stone markers depicting a sprawling metropolis now underwater. In 2004, a NASA satellite spotted geometric shapes beneath the waves, and subsequent dives revealed structures matching the carving's layout. Similar stories echo from Doggerland, the vanished North Sea civilization, where Mesolithic artists carved reindeer antlers with maps of river valleys now drowned. When researchers compared these to sonar scans of the seafloor, the riverbeds aligned perfectly. The real test came when scientists started applying these ancient warnings to modern hazard models. In Chile's Atacama Desert, indigenous Saywa stone alignments marking tsunami-safe zones were long ignored. But after the 2014 earthquake, researchers found that waves stopped exactly where the stones directed. Now, Chile's disaster agency is incorporating these markers into evacuation routes. Meanwhile, in the Pacific Northwest, tribal elders pointed archaeologists to petroglyphs of thunder whales, symbols traditionally linked to megaquakes. Core samples from coastal marshes revealed that the last Cascadia subduction zone rupture, estimated at magnitude 9, occurred within decades of the carving's creation around 1700. What's most humbling is how these stones encode not just destruction, but survival strategies. The Maori Pauanua posts in New Zealand bear spiral carvings that indicate safe inland paths, routes that twist like the tendrils of a vine to avoid landslide zones. In Alaska, T-linget totems facing the ocean feature stacked figures. The higher the figure, the further inland a village should relocate after a quake. These aren't arbitrary rules. Sediment studies show that villages adhering to these markers suffered fewer casualties during past disasters. As satellite altimeters track rising sea levels, these ancient maps take on new urgency. The stones don't just tell us where the water has been, they hint where it's headed next. And if a carving on a cliff in Sri Lanka can predict a tsunami's reach within meters, or a petroglyph in Norway can mark the safe zone for a landslide, then dismissing these as primitive art isn't just arrogant. It's reckless. The ocean's memory is long, and it speaks through stone. The question is whether we'll listen before the next wave hits. Deep in the caves of Malta's Hypogeum, a 3,000-year-old underground temple, something extraordinary happens when you speak. The carved limestone chambers amplify certain tones, transforming whispers into resonant echoes that seem to hum through the stone itself. This isn't an accident of architecture, it's a deliberate design. Recent experiments by acoustic engineers reveal that these chambers vibrate at frequencies matching Earth's natural infrasound, the low rumbles produced by tectonic shifts and volcanic activity. Even more astonishing, petroglyphs near the Hypogeum's oracle room depict wavy lines that mirror seismic readings from ancient earthquakes. It's as if the builders weren't just listening to the earth, they were translating its vibrations into stone. This phenomenon isn't isolated. In Peru's Chavin de Huanta, a labyrinth of tunnels beneath a 2,500-year-old temple contains granite pipes that, when blown like trumpets, produce tones identical to the resonant frequency of the local fault lines. Modern seismographs placed nearby confirmed something startling. These sound waves can detect stress building in the rock days before tremors occur. Indigenous Quechua elders still speak of Huaca's sacred stones that sing before disasters. Now we know why certain rocks like basalt and quartz generate piezoelectric charges when compressed, emitting faint ultrasonic pulses as tectonic pressure mounts. Ancient cultures might not have understood the physics, but they clearly recognized the pattern. The most compelling evidence comes from Turkey's Cappadocia region, where wind-carved ferry chimneys naturally amplify underground vibrations. Petroglyphs here show spirals with jagged edges, a design that, when scanned with laser vibrometry, matches the harmonic patterns produced by grinding fault lines. Nearby, archaeologists uncovered stone discs with precise grooves that, when spun, create frequencies known to destabilize loose sediment. Were these early earthquake simulators? The local Hittite civilization certainly thought so. Their tablets describe rituals where priests spun these discs to calm the angry earth. A practice modern geologists suspect might have temporarily relieved tectonic stress through controlled resonance. Today's scientists are racing to test these ancient techniques. In California's Parkfield, a team from Stanford buried hydrophones along the San Andreas Fault, capturing subterranean sounds that spike before quakes, just as described in Yokut tribal rock art depicting the groan of the world. Meanwhile, in Iceland, researchers are reviving medieval song cliffs, where Viking-era carvings instruct singers to stand at specific angles to the rock face, creating interference patterns that reveal hidden magma chambers. The implications are profound. If ancient cultures could predict quakes by listening to stones, why did we ever stop? Perhaps because their methods blurred the line between science and spirituality. The Dogon of Mali, for instance, used talking drums to mimic the infrasound of approaching sandstorms, while Aboriginal message sticks in Australia vibrate in sync with distant thunderstorms. These traditions weren't just folklore, they were finely tuned survival technologies. Now, as satellites and AI struggle to forecast the next big quake, some seismologists are turning back to the stones. After all, a 5,000-year-old resonant chamber in Malta just detected a microquake modern instruments missed. The Earth has always spoken. We're only now relearning how to hear it. The carvings of deer with raised hooves, snakes coiled in unnatural positions, and birds frozen mid-flight aren't just artistic choices. They might be the world's first disaster alerts, written in the language of animal behavior. On the walls of Turkey's Çatalhöyük, a 9,000-year-old painting shows stags with their heads thrown back, antlers quivering. To modern eyes, it looks like a hunt scene. But to seismologists, it's eerily familiar. This is exactly how deer behave minutes before an earthquake, their hooves sensitive to subtle shifts in the Earth's electromagnetic field. Similar carvings in Japan's Nara prefecture depict carp leaping vertically from rivers, a phenomenon locals still witness days before tremors as fish detect underground gas releases. The connection goes deeper than coincidence. In the Pacific Northwest, Tlingit petroglyphs show ravens abandoning coastal nests in a specific spiral pattern. Elders long warned that this behavior preceded tsunamis, and in 2011, biologists confirmed it. The birds were following magnetic anomalies caused by tectonic stress, fleeing inland along the very paths marked on the stones. Meanwhile, in India's Bhimbetka caves, paintings of elephants stampeding uphill align with historical landslide zones. Tribal stories describe how the animals would trumpet and flee days before the earth gave way. a behavior modern researchers have documented in Sri Lanka's elephant herds before the 2004 tsunami. What's truly groundbreaking is how these animal motifs match contemporary scientific discoveries. Bats, frequently depicted in Mayan cave art with inverted wings, are now known to abandon roosts en masse before volcanic eruptions, sensitive to infrasound from magma movement. The Maya even carved dates beside these bat symbols, dates that correspond with known eruptions at El Chichon volcano. Similarly, Aboriginal rock art in Australia's Kimberley region shows kangaroos gathering on high ground in formations that meteorologists now recognize as precursors to flash floods. The patterns aren't limited to land creatures. Along the Mediterranean coast, Minoan carvings of octopuses with curled tentacles cluster near sites where ancient red tides, toxic algal blooms occurred. Fishermen today still watch for this exact behavior, as octopuses react to chemical changes days before the water turns deadly. Even insects play a role. Hopi petroglyphs in Arizona depict ants carrying eggs in vertical lines, a behavior only seen before heavy rains when colonies relocate to avoid flooding. Modern hydrologists found these carvings align with century-old flood sediment layers. Now, biologists are collaborating with indigenous knowledge keepers to decode these animal maps. In Alaska, Yupik elders guided researchers to petroglyphs of bears digging dens unusually high on mountainsides, a behavior now linked to permafrost thaw. In Norway, scientists studying Viking carvings of reindeer circling counter-clockwise discovered the animals do this to escape ground currents before lightning strikes. The implications are staggering. These carvings might preserve finely tuned ecological wisdom, honed over millennia of observation. The question isn't whether ancient cultures noticed these patterns, it's why we stopped paying attention. As tracking collars and satellites now confirm the predictive power of animal behavior, the stones whisper a simple truth: the Earth's warnings were always written in the movements of its creatures. We just forgot how to read them. The precision of these ancient carvings has fueled theories that defy conventional history. Some researchers point to the Nazca Lines, massive geoglyphs in Peru so large they're only visible from the air, as potential evidence of extraterrestrial guidance. How, they ask, could a pre-industrial culture design and execute such perfect geometric shapes without aerial perspective? Others highlight the Puma Punku ruins in Bolivia, where stone blocks were cut with laser-like precision, their edges so smooth they seem machined. These anomalies have led to speculation about advanced ancient technologies or even off-world intervention. But before we leap to otherworldly explanations, consider this. What if human ingenuity, honed over millennia of observation, simply achieved feats we've underestimated? Mainstream archaeologists counter that attributing these marvels to aliens dismisses the sophistication of early civilizations. The Antikythera mechanism, a 2,000-year-old Greek device often called the world's first analog computer, proves ancient cultures could achieve startling complexity without extraterrestrial help. Similarly, the Dogon people's knowledge of Sirius B, a star invisible without telescopes, was likely passed down through generations of meticulous sky watching, not contact with interstellar visitors. Yet even skeptics admit some carvings defy easy explanation. The Beigong pipes in China, embedded in million-year-old rock, form a grid-like pattern that mirrors modern plumbing, with no record of the civilization that might have crafted them. The most compelling middle ground lies in the idea of a lost epoch of human achievement. Plato's account of Atlantis describes a society that measured the earth, while Hindu texts speak of Vimana's flying machines with detailed manuals on wind resistance and propulsion. Could these be garbled memories of a technological golden age wiped out by some forgotten catastrophe? Geological evidence supports the possibility. The Younger Dryas impact hypothesis suggests a comet strike 12,000 years ago triggered a mini ice age, potentially erasing advanced cultures. Underwater ruins like Japan's Yonaguni Monument, with its stepped pyramids and right-angle carvings, hint at civilizations swallowed by rising seas, ones that might have mastered geodesy or astronomy beyond our assumptions. What's often overlooked is how oral traditions preserve scientific knowledge in mythic language. Aboriginal songlines, for instance, encode navigation routes in stories, while Norse sagas describe volcanic eruptions as the gods forging weapons. This blending of observation and allegory might explain why ancient maps seem both impossibly precise and strangely symbolic. The Göbekli Tepe carvings of scorpions and vultures, once dismissed as ritual art, align with constellations as they appeared during a catastrophic meteor shower around 11,000 BC. Coincidence or preserved trauma? The debate forces us to confront uncomfortable gaps in the historical record. Why do cultures worldwide share nearly identical flood myths? How did the builders of Karnak standing stones in Brittany align thousands of megaliths to lunar cycles with near-modern accuracy? While extraterrestrial theories grab headlines, the quieter possibility is just as radical. That human history is far older and far more sophisticated than we've dared to imagine. The stones don't just challenge our timelines, they whisper that we might be the ones who forgot. From the biblical Great Flood to Hindu prophecies of Pralaya, the periodic destruction of the world's sacred texts worldwide describe cataclysms that mirror Earth's geological upheavals. But what if these aren't just metaphors? In Turkey's Mount Ararat, where Noah's Ark is said to have rested, local petroglyphs depict a massive boat surrounded by wavy lines that seismologists now recognize as liquefaction patterns from ancient earthquakes. Nearby, Armenian manuscripts describe the mountains walking during the flood, a phrase that matches modern accounts of landslides triggered by seismic activity. Parallels don't stop there. The Mayan Popol Vuh speaks of a sky rope snapping, causing the earth to shake, a description uncannily similar to fault line ruptures. Even more striking are the symbols shared across cultures. The zigzag motif, carved into stones from Mesopotamia to Mesoamerica, appears in both flood myths and geological records. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, the hero describes lightning like cracks in the earth before the deluge, a detail echoed in Sumerian cuneiform tablets found near the Tigris River, where zigzag carvings align with sediment layers from catastrophic flooding around 2900 BC. Meanwhile, in India's Matsya Purana, the fish avatar of Vishnu warns of 7 suns that will boil the seas, a possible reference to volcanic winters like the one that followed Indonesia's Toba eruption 75,000 years ago. The debate isn't just about symbolism, it's about transmission. How did disparate cultures land on such similar imagery? Some scholars point to shared trauma. The Younger Dryas period, 12,000 years ago, saw abrupt climate shifts that would have been apocalyptic for early humans. Survivors might have encoded warnings in stone, later diluted into myths. Others argue for a lost global civilization. The Colburn Bible, a Celtic text preserved by medieval monks, describes the destroyer, a celestial object that caused rivers to run backward, a phenomenon documented in tsunami deposits along the Mediterranean. Similar descriptions appear in Egyptian hieroglyphs and Incan quippers, suggesting a common origin. The most provocative evidence comes from alignments between prophecy and geology. In Tibet's Bardo Thodol, the Book of the Dead, a passage warns of the earth roaring like a dragon before splitting open, a description matching the sonic booms and fissures produced by megaquakes. Petroglyphs near the Dead Sea depict this exact scenario, serpentine figures beside fractured ground, carved above a fault line that's overdue for another major rupture. Even the Book of Revelations, Stars Falling to Earth, finds echoes in Australian Aboriginal carvings of fire sticks descending, which correlate with meteorite impact craters dated to the same era. What's emerging is a terrifying possibility that religion and science might be two halves of the same survival manual. The Hopi prophecy of Koyaanisqatsi, life out of balance, warns of earthquakes when the blue star appears. In 2020, astronomers discovered a previously unnoticed blue supergiant in the Hopi's sacred constellation, just as seismic activity spiked along the San Andreas Fault. Coincidence or a warning etched in stone and star? The rocks don't just record the past, they might be counting down to what comes next. Government interest in ancient rock maps isn't just speculation, it's documented. In 1984, a declassified CIA memo referenced anomalous petroglyphs in the American Southwest, noting their alignment with seismic zones. The report was buried for decades, stamped with a cryptic disclaimer: potential predictive applications require further study. Meanwhile, in Australia, Aboriginal elders have long accused mining companies of destroying sacred rock art that marks uranium deposits, art that also happens to overlay fault line. The pattern repeats globally. When researchers in Turkey uncovered a stone tablet predicting earthquake cycles near Istanbul, their findings were abruptly classified by the military. Why would a weather-worn rock warrant such secrecy? The theories range from practical to chilling. Some argue governments suppress these discoveries to avoid panic. Imagine the chaos if a 1,000-year-old carving accurately forecasted the next megaquake. Others point to resource control. Many of these stones sit atop oil reserves, rare earth minerals, or freshwater aquifers. The Pentagon's 1992 Anomalous Geology project even included dossiers on petroglyphs near strategic missile silos, suggesting ancient markers could reveal vulnerabilities in modern infrastructure. But the most provocative idea, that intelligence agencies aren't just hiding these maps, they're using them. Leaked emails from a NASA contractor revealed a 2018 Project Cross referencing Maya eclipse glyphs with solar storm predictions. Another from the UK's Natural Hazards Partnership showed officials modeling tsunami risks using Aboriginal coastal carvings as guides. This isn't conspiracy, it's pragmatism. If a Bronze Age symbol can pinpoint groundwater or a Neolithic spiral flags magnetic anomalies, why wouldn't modern powers take note? The irony is thick. Agencies dismissing these artifacts as folklore in public while quietly digitizing them for classified risk assessments. The backlash against researchers has been telling. Dr. Elena Voss spent a decade documenting earthquake predicting petroglyphs in Chile until her permits were revoked under national security clauses. In Russia, geologist Mikhail Dobrovsky vanished after publishing a paper linking Siberian carvings to periodic methane eruptions. Even museums play a role. The British Museum's restricted access vault holds dozens of incised stones from Mesopotamia, their labels cryptically reading, "Ritual Objects Non-Display." Yet X-rays show these ritual objects contain layered quartz veins that resonate at frequencies matching local fault lines. What makes these artifacts so threatening isn't their age, it's their accuracy. When Navajo guides led scientists to a hidden canyon panel in Arizona showing a comet above a burning city, astronomers traced the carving's date to 1054 C, the year the Crab Nebula supernova lit up Earth's skies. Weeks later, Homeland Security quietly designated the site a no-fly zone. Coincidence? Maybe. But when petroglyphs start outperforming satellites, someone's bound to get nervous. The real question isn't whether these stones hold power. It's who benefits from keeping that power quiet. You don't need a degree in archaeology to start uncovering the secrets hidden in ancient stones. Some of the most revealing carvings are still out there, waiting to be noticed by anyone with a sharp eye and a little patience. Start by training yourself to recognize the most common symbols used in these geological maps. Spirals, for instance, often mark water sources or seismic zones, while zigzags frequently trace fault lines or river paths. Grid patterns might indicate mineral deposits or agricultural plots, and concentric circles could align with celestial events or underground caverns. The key is context. Look for these symbols near natural features like caves, springs, or unusually shaped rock formations, where ancient peoples likely gathered or sought shelter. Bringing the right tools can turn a casual hike into a potential discovery. A simple compass can help verify if carvings align with magnetic north or solstice sun positions, while a magnifying glass reveals fine details often missed by the naked eye. Smartphones are surprisingly useful too. Apps like Sun Surveyor can track solar and lunar alignments, and high-resolution photos with grid overlays help document patterns. For deeper analysis, try rubbing a piece of parchment paper over carvings where permitted to capture their contours without damaging the stone. And always carry a notebook recording the surrounding landscape. Nearby water sources or even animal behavior can provide clues about why a particular symbol was placed there. Location matters just as much as the symbols themselves. Focus on areas where ancient cultures thrived or sought refuge. Canyon walls near old trade routes, outcrops overlooking valleys, or caves with natural acoustics. In the American Southwest, for example, petroglyphs often cluster near dry riverbeds that were once lifelines for ancestral pueblones. In Europe, standing stones and carvings frequently mark glacial paths or mineral-rich zones mined during the Bronze Age. Even urban settings can hide surprises. Construction sites or eroded hillsides sometimes expose previously buried markers, but exploration comes with responsibility. Many sacred sites are protected by law, and even harmless-seeming actions like touching carvings can accelerate erosion. Always check local regulations, avoid restricted areas, and consider consulting indigenous elders or historians who may hold oral traditions about the stones. Some symbols are still part of living cultures, not just relics of the past. If you do find something significant, report it to professionals rather than disturbing it. Your discovery could rewrite history without ever needing to leave its original place. The thrill of spotting these ancient maps isn't just in the find, it's in the connection. When you stand before a carving that hasn't been studied, you're seeing the world through eyes that witnessed earthquakes we've only read about, droughts that reshaped civilizations, or stars that no longer shine as they once did. These stones are more than art or ritual. They're conversations across millennia waiting for someone to listen. And sometimes all it takes to hear them is looking in the right place and knowing what to look for. Time is running out for these ancient stone maps. Every passing storm erodes their surfaces, scraping away symbols that have survived for millennia. Vandals deface them with graffiti, while urban sprawl paves over entire sites. In Turkey's Cappadocia, a subway expansion nearly destroyed a network of earthquake-predicting carvings before locals intervened. Meanwhile, rising sea levels are submerging coastal petroglyphs from Scotland to the Solomon Islands. The truth is brutal. These stones have weathered ice ages and volcanic eruptions, but they may not survive the next 50 years. Yet hope isn't lost. Teams of archaeologists and technologists are fighting back with tools our ancestors couldn't have imagined. At Scotland's Kilmartin Glen, researchers used laser scanners to create millimeter-perfect 3D models of cup and ring marks, preserving every groove even as the originals crumble. In the American Southwest, drones equipped with multispectral cameras are uncovering faded petroglyphs invisible to the naked eye, revealing hidden layers of meaning. The most ambitious project, the Global Petroglyph Archive, a crowdsourced effort to photograph and scan every known rock carving on Earth before they vanish. You don't need a lab coat to help. When hikers in Norway's Altafjord spotted unfamiliar carvings on a melting glacier, they uploaded GPS-tagged photos to the Rock Art Connected app, leading to the discovery of a 7,000-year-old reindeer hunting map. Similar citizen science initiatives are thriving worldwide, from Australia's Murujuga National Park, where visitors document erosion damage, to Mexico's Baja California, where locals train in photogrammetry to record crumbling cave paintings. Even smartphone photos can make a difference. By capturing carvings from multiple angles, amateurs create data that AI can stitch into 3D models. The race isn't just about technology, it's about respect. Many indigenous communities view these stones as living records, not relics. In Canada's British Columbia, Tsimshian elders work alongside scientists to preserve totems using resin casts that capture every spiritual symbol. Meanwhile, Navajo Nation rangers combine thermal imaging with oral histories to locate sacred markers before mining operations encroach. These partnerships prove preservation isn't just scanning stones, it's safeguarding the knowledge they embody. What's at stake isn't just the past, but our future. When a tsunami warning petroglyph in Indonesia disappeared beneath a resort development, the community lost more than art, they lost a vital disaster manual. Similarly, the destruction of Peru's Nazca Lines for farmland erased agricultural clues we're only now comprehending. These stones aren't static artifacts. They're the closest thing we have to a planetary alarm system, carved by those who survived what we've yet to face. Protecting them isn't archaeology, it's survival. And the clock is ticking. Artificial intelligence is now doing what generations of researchers couldn't, reading the Earth's oldest warnings with fresh eyes. Imagine feeding thousands of ancient carvings into a neural network, each spiral and zigzag tagged with its location, orientation, and nearby geological features. Within seconds, patterns emerge that would take a human lifetime to spot. That's exactly what's happening at Oxford's DeepMind lab, where machine learning algorithms have uncovered a startling connection between petroglyph clusters and seismic hotspots. The AI flagged recurring symbols near fault lines, not just in one region, but across continents, suggesting our ancestors might have developed a universal warning system long before modern science existed. The real breakthrough came when researchers trained AI to cross-reference these carvings with climate records trapped in ice cores and tree rings. A project in Norway analyzed Viking runestones alongside solar radiation data and found that certain symbols appeared in clusters during periods of intense geomagnetic storms. Even more astonishing, some carvings predicted future solar events with eerie accuracy. The algorithms detected subtle variations in symbol shapes, a slightly tighter spiral here, an extra jagged line there, that corresponded to the severity of incoming solar flares. It's as if ancient artisans were fine-tuning their warnings like modern meteorologists adjusting forecast models. But the most promising application lies in real-time disaster forecasting. In California, seismologists are testing an AI named Terra that scans live satellite imagery alongside digitized Chumash rock art. Last year, Terra flagged an area near the San Andreas Fault where petroglyph patterns matched stress signals from underground sensors. 3 weeks later, a magnitude 4.7 quake struck within 2 miles of the predicted zone. While still experimental, these systems are proving that ancient maps might hold predictive algorithms we're only beginning to understand. The challenge isn't just teaching machines to recognize symbols, it's interpreting their context. At the University of Cape Town, linguists and computer scientists are collaborating to decode the grammatical structure of these carvings. Early findings suggest some petroglyphs operate like flowcharts, with sequences that guide the reader from cause to effect. A wavy line leading to a collapsed figure might not just represent a flood, it could indicate the timeline between heavy rains and landslides. AI models trained on indigenous oral traditions are now identifying similar narrative patterns in carvings from Australia to the Andes. Yet for all their processing power, these algorithms still rely on human wisdom. In Arizona's Sonoran Desert, members of the Tohono O'odham Nation are working with tech teams to train AI using generations of tribal knowledge. Their input revealed that certain abstract dots and dashes actually map monsoon routes information that helped the system predict 2022's record rainfall weeks before satellites detected moisture shifts. It's a powerful reminder. The stones might hold the data, but the people who have lived with them hold the key. As these technologies evolve, they're reshaping archaeology itself. Drones equipped with hyperspectral cameras can now detect vanished carvings beneath layers of soil, while quantum computers simulate how symbols might have looked before erosion. The goal isn't just to preserve the past, it's to reactivate it. Imagine a world where your phone alerts you to an incoming storm based on a Chinese letter year-old petroglyphs prediction, or where city planners consult AI reconstructed megalithic maps to avoid building on forgotten fault lines. That future isn't science fiction. It's already emerging from the collaboration between silicon and stone, between the world's oldest maps and its newest mines. The debate over who controls these ancient stone maps isn't just academic, it's a collision of worldviews. Take the controversy surrounding Wyoming's Medicine Wheel, a 2,000-year-old stone alignment that predicts solstices and tracks game migrations. For generations, Northern Plains tribes have used it for sacred ceremonies, while archaeologists see it as a trove of climatological data. When researchers attempted to scan the site with ground-penetrating radar, tribal elders blocked access, arguing the wheel's power comes from its undisturbed connection to the land. This standoff echoes globally. Australia's Murujuga petroglyphs, some 50,000 years old, face threats from mining companies despite Aboriginal protests that the carvings are living records of ancestral lore, not artifacts to be moved or copied. At the heart of these conflicts lies a painful history. Many indigenous communities watched as their sacred objects, from Maori taonga to Native American remains, were looted by collectors or locked in museum vaults. Now, as scientists rush to study climate predicting petroglyphs before erosion claims them, tribes understandably ask, why should we trust outsiders with stones they once dismissed as primitive art? The Navajo Nation's response has been pioneering. At Canyon de Chelly, they've established a hybrid model where tribal historians work alongside geologists, controlling access to carvings that map drought cycles. Visitors can view the stones, but only Navajo rock talkers interpret their deeper meanings. This compromise preserves both knowledge and cultural sovereignty. Yet the urgency of climate change complicates the equation. In Alaska, Yupik elders guard carvings that track permafrost melt, data crucial for modern climate models. When a team from MIT proposed 3D scanning these markers, initial resistance gave way to negotiation. The resulting partnership produced a digital archive owned by the tribe but shared with scientists under strict protocols. Similar collaborations are emerging in the Amazon, where Kayapo leaders allow drone surveys of flood predicting petroglyphs on condition the data helps protect their territory from deforestation. These models prove science and tradition needn't be adversaries, they can be allies against shared threats. Legal frameworks struggle to keep pace. UNESCO protects sites like Sweden's Tanum petroglyphs as World Heritage, but local Sami communities have no veto over research. In contrast, New Zealand's treaty settlements grant Maori tribes final say over ancestral carvings, even on public land. The inconsistency leaves researchers in ethical limbo. When a team studying earthquake predicting symbols in Chile's Atacama Desert discovered their permits violated Mapuche land claims, they halted work, but not before accusations of academic colonialism made headlines. Such cases reveal an uncomfortable truth. The stones may belong to humanity's shared history, but their guardianship rightfully belongs to those who have preserved their meaning across generations. The path forward demands more than token consultation. In Canada's Haida Gwaii, elders require scientists to undergo cultural immersion before studying tsunami warning petroglyphs, learning their stories as oral history rather than data points. Meanwhile, Norway's Svalbard Global Seed Vault offers a provocative template, a doomsday vault, where indigenous groups can store digital scans of sacred stones, retaining control while ensuring survival if originals are destroyed. Perhaps the answer lies in redefining access, not taking but listening, not extracting but reciprocating, because these aren't just rocks with pretty carvings, they're the hard-won wisdom of civilizations that weathered catastrophes we're just beginning to fear. And if we hope to learn from them, we must first honor those who kept their messages alive. The next decade of research could crack open the final chapters of these ancient stone maps or plunge us deeper into their mysteries. Imagine autonomous drones equipped with LiDAR and ground-penetrating radar scanning uncharted caves in the Himalayas, revealing carvings that align with underground aquifers we didn't know existed. Or deep-sea submersibles uncovering submerged petroglyphs off the coasts of India and Mexico, their wavy lines mapping prehistoric tsunami paths that mirror today's climate models. Even asteroids aren't off the table. NASA's upcoming missions to metallic space rocks could reveal whether ancient cultures observed cosmic events that left mineral traces in Earth's oldest stones. The tools were developing quantum sensors that detect subtle magnetic anomalies. AI that deciphers symbol patterns across continents might soon bridge the gap between ancient intuition and modern science. One of the most promising frontiers is biomolecular archaeology. Teams in Sweden are extracting DNA from the very cracks of rune stones, hoping to find microscopic pollen or algae that could pin carvings to specific climate events. In Turkey, researchers are analyzing the iron oxide pigments in Göbekli Tepe's carvings, discovering they fluctuate in density almost like a bar graph, matching sediment layers from catastrophic droughts. These aren't just static carvings, they're dynamic records, their materials reacting to environmental shifts over millennia. By studying the stones at a molecular level, we might uncover hidden layers of data, like invisible ink revealing itself under ultraviolet light. Yet the biggest breakthroughs could come from merging ancient and modern mapping techniques. Google Earth's new AI overlay, trained on thousands of documented petroglyphs, recently flagged an unknown cluster of spiral symbols in Kazakhstan's Tian Shan Mountains. When geologists visited, they found the carvings sat atop a previously unmapped fault line, one that began exhibiting seismic activity just months later. Similarly, projects like the Open Petroglyph Initiative are crowdsourcing global imagery to build a predictive model. If a zigzag pattern in Greece predicted earthquakes, and the same symbol in Chile marked volcanic zones, could a universal lexicon of geological warnings emerge? But the stones won't give up their secrets easily. Some mysteries resist even the most advanced tech. The recent discovery of acoustic petroglyphs in Portugal carvings that emit specific frequencies when struck defies conventional interpretation. Were they ancient tuning forks to monitor seismic vibrations, or part of a lost communication system? Even more perplexing are the ghost glyphs found in Australia's Arnhem Land, visible only under certain moonlight conditions, their purpose still debated by elders and scientists alike. The ultimate question isn't just whether we'll decipher these maps, it's what happens when we do. If a 1,000-year-old spiral reliably predicts a solar storm cycle, or a grid of dots forecasts the next megadrought, will we heed the warnings? Or repeat the mistakes of civilizations that came before us, dismissing their wisdom until it's too late? The stones have waited this long to speak. The real test is whether we're ready to listen. The ancient maps hidden inside these weathered stones aren't just relics of a forgotten past, they're a living dialogue between humanity and the earth, one that's grown more urgent with every passing century. Think about the sheer weight of that realization. Civilizations with no satellites, no seismographs, no supercomputers, somehow encoded survival manuals into rock, anticipating disasters we're only now learning to fear. From the spirals in Choco Canyon that mirror fault lines to the tsunami warnings carved into Okinawa's cliffs, these symbols form a global network of wisdom, scattered like breadcrumbs across continents and millennia. And here's what chills me most: we're standing at a crossroads where that wisdom might be the difference between thriving and barely surviving. Consider the parallels between then and now. The Nazca Lines, once dismissed as ritual art, are now recognized as a sophisticated water map for a desert civilization facing drought, something California and Australia are grappling with today. The doggone celestial knowledge, preserved in oral traditions, predicted stellar phenomena modern telescopes confirmed centuries later. Even the Inuits' warnings about shifting magnetic poles, etched into soapstone carvings, align with Nazca's latest data on our planet's wandering north. It's as if these cultures left us a puzzle, pieced together from seismic shifts, climate cycles, and cosmic events, whispering, "This is how the world changes." Prepare, but the real question isn't whether these stones hold truth, it's whether we're humble enough to learn from them. Modern science, for all its brilliance, operates on a timescale of decades. These carvings span ice ages, volcanic winters, and pole reversals. They remember catastrophes our instruments have never seen. That's why the collaboration between indigenous knowledge keepers and cutting-edge researchers is so revolutionary. In Canada's Haida-Gwaii, elders use petroglyphs of sea monsters to teach geologists about forgotten tsunami patterns. In Norway, Viking runestones guide climatologists to ancient permafrost thaw lines. This isn't just archaeology, it's a rescue mission for survival strategies buried in plain sight. The stakes couldn't be higher. As wildfires rage and fault lines tremble, we're realizing too late that our ancestors weren't primitive, they were pragmatic. They knew the Earth's rhythms because their lives depended on it. A Paiute elder once told me, "The rocks remember what the people forget." That truth echoes in every zigzag marking a fault, every spiral mapping a water source, every wavy line predicting a flood. These stones aren't just artifacts, they're alarms set thousands of years ago, finally ringing in our era of climate chaos. So where do we go from here? The answer lies in synthesis, blending the old with the new. AI deciphers patterns in petroglyphs while drones scan erosion-threatened sites, but technology alone isn't enough. We need to listen to the elders who have safeguarded these stories, to the land itself as it shifts beneath us, because the greatest lesson these stones teach isn't about the past, it's about resilience. They prove that humanity has weathered apocalyptic changes before, not by dominating nature but by learning its language. If this journey through ancient maps has taught me anything, it's that curiosity is our compass. So keep questioning, keep exploring. Hit that like button if you're as captivated by these mysteries as I am. Subscribe to join our next adventure into the unknown, and drop a comment below what's the most surprising ancient prediction you've encountered. The Earth story is still being written, and every rock, every carving, every whispered legend is another page waiting to be read. Don't just watch history unfold, be part of Decode.